Protista. What is Protista? Eh, Hi guys, how are you? I'm Arman, along with Nurin and Nisa from Group Plantae. We're talking about Protista, and we welcome you to enjoy our entertaining and enjoyable video. Alright, without further talking, let's go. So, in this video, we will be covering four things, which is the unique characteristics of Protista, the classification, types of algae, and also the importance of Protista. So, let's have a look. The unique characteristics of Protista. Firstly, it is the simplest eukaryotes out there, and the habitat of Protista consists of three, which is freshwater, marine, and damp soil. Wait, we are not done yet. Actually, Protista vary in size. The size of Protista is ranging from microscopic to as large as trees, and most exist as unicellular. However, others still exist as multicellular or colonial. They possess different types of cell surfaces, which is from plasma membrane such as amoeba and plasma membrane encased with strong walls. For your information, some protists can make their own food while others cannot. However, there is Giganorodis, who can obtain energy from a variety of sources depending on the environmental conditions. It's so special that it can photosynthesize in light and hunt when it's dark. Actually, protease is a major component of plankton. Wait, plankton? Yes, the villain from SpongeBob SquarePants. Okay, so protease is either a photoplankton or zooplankton. So, furthermore, there is also two major groups of protists, which is algae, plant-like protists, and protozoa, which is animal-like protists. Which is algae, which is plant-like protists, and protozoa, which is animal-like protists. So now let's take a look at the classification of Protista. So, however, I need to remind you all that in this video, we are only going to emphasize on algae and not protozoa. Alright. So below algae, there are two phylums, which is phylum Chlorophyta and also phylum Phaeophyta. So for phylum Chlorophyta, there is Volvox and Chlamydomonas as the example, while for phylum Phaeophyta, there is Fucus as an example. Now we are going to dive deeper on the types of algae. So there are three types of algae, but what are those types? The three types of algae are green, brown, and red algae, or Chlorophyta, Phaeophyta, and Rhodophyta. Well, all algae are an eukaryotic organism. Furthermore, green algae mostly exist as unicellular that form colonies, and others exist as multicellular. However, brown algae only exist as multicellular, while red algae are mainly multicellular for marine species. However, mostly in case of freshwater species, they exist as a unicellular organism. Now that we have known the three types of algae, which are green, brown, and red algae, let's find out about their general characteristics.
So let's talk about the first general characteristic of green algae, or scientifically known as phylum Chlorophyta. Firstly, their habitat and habit. Green algae mostly live in freshwater, but there's also some that live in ocean, such as seaweeds or phytoplankton. Generally, they love to grow in moist places. They also can establish symbiotic relationships with other organisms. For example, lichen. Lichen, they provide moist sheltered habitat for cyanobacteria or algae, and in turn they receive food. Next, the size. Some of green algae are unicellular and microscopic, meaning they are single cell and they are very, very small. For example, the green algae Micromonas is only 1 micrometer in diameter, which is the smallest eukaryotic cell known. You can imagine, right, how small it is, and it can only be seen under microscope. Moving on to the third characteristics, which is morphology or simply said the structure. Green algae have four different body types, which is unicellular, colonial, filamentous such as Pyrogyra, and plant-like marine forms such as alva. Alva is basically the seaweed that we all eat. I've laid out the four body types on the slide in order as you can see here. As green algae undergoes the photosynthesis process, they possess one to many chloroplasts. They also have chlorophyll A, B, carotenes, and xanthophyll, which are the components that make up the photosynthesis process. If you want to know why there are many types of chlorophyll, they are just different due to the type of lights that they absorb according to wavelength. Chlorophyll A absorbs violet blue, orange red light, and pale green, while chlorophyll B absorbs blue light. They also store starch inside plastids as food reserve. Lastly, they share numerous characteristics with plants, such as both have chlorophyll A and B, uses starch and sugar as food reserve, and have cell wall made up of cellulose. Green algae can be classified into three groups, which is Chlorophyceae, Ulvophyceae, and Caryophyceae. They are grouped based on how flagella are attached or constructed, cell covering either by scales or cell wall, and how the cells divide by cytokinesis or mitosis. Now, we are going to explore the general characteristics of the brown algae, or scientifically called as phylum Phaeophyta. Firstly, the habitat and habit. 99% of this algae type were found in marine, meaning they live in saltwater environment. But there are still some of them that live in freshwater environment, yet there are very few of them. This type of algae is solitary and non-motile organism, meaning they do not move and only stay in one place. As for the second characteristics, which is size, brown algae have the largest algae that is known as giant kelp. It may reach a length of over 100 feet or more. Not only that, they also have tiny species such as Rafflesia espansa, or known as tar spot. You can see at the pictures that have been provided that the giant kelp is very large when placed beside the swimmers, while tar spot can be measured by using ruler only. Moving on to the morphology characteristics, brown algae have a plant-like body called thallus. This thallus is the complete body of seaweed in which they lack specialized tissues that typical higher plants have, such as stem, leaves, and roots. The typical shape of algae, fungi, lichens, and some liverworts are what we call as thalli. Generally, there are three main parts of brown algae, which is holdfast, the root-like structure present at the alga base; side, the stalk or stem-like structure; and blades. Brown algae also has this remarkable structure known as pneumatocyst, which is a bladder that contains gas-filled bloods. They function to provide buoyancy, which lifts the blades to its surface so that brown algae receive more sunlight. Lastly, 40% dry weight of some kelps comes from the alginic acid that occurs on or in the cell wall of brown algae. Next, the locomotion. As mentioned before, brown algae does not move. Therefore, they do not have locomotory organ or structure. But they are still possible to move, not by themselves, but by the water current. The fifth characteristic is mode of nutrition. Generally, brown algae is photosynthetic, which is why they consist of chlorophyll A and C. Do you guys ever wonder how does the color of this algae is brown? The answer is in the food storage, which is plastics. The plastic contains large amount of fucoxanthin that gives brown or olive color to this algae. Meanwhile, the main food reserve is laminarin, which is a type of glucan, or simply said, the polypeptides of glucose. The last characteristics of brown algae is reproduction. Brown algae undergoes both asexual and sexual reproduction. How they reproduce asexually is by a process called fragmentation, where they will split into fragments that will later form a new organism that is a copy of the original organism. For example, the sargassum. But brown algae commonly reproduce sexually and associated with gametes. They have a life cycle in which there is an alternation of heteromorphic generations. These complex freeze actually just mean that this process involves haploid gametophyte, which is microscopic, and later diploid sporophyte, this large and conspicuous. This whole diagram is an example of sexual reproduction by laminaria. You can see that there is haploid male and female gametophyte at the early stage and diploid sporophyte as the final form. Therefore, here marks the end of the brown algae characteristics. Let's hear about red algae in the next slide.
So what about the habitat and habit of red algae? Well, they are found in both marine and freshwater environment, and approximately 5% in freshwater with greater concentration in warmer area. Talking about the size of red algae, they consist of a talus-like body measuring, which means that they lack of three things, which is leaves, stem, and conducting tissues, and they only measures up to 10 centimeters. How small is that, right? For phylum Rhodophyta, their morphology contain chlorophyll A and D, followed by phycoerythrin, phycocyanin, and alophyocyanin as accessory pigments. Their cell walls have cellulose as framework, and mostly mucilages contains agas and carrageenan. Moreover, some contain calcium carbonate in their cell wall, like coralline algae. Some even come in blue-green or olive, and not the color red. They also lack flagella and centriole. In terms of reproduction, you must first know that the red algae undergo triphasic life cycle consisting of gametophyte, casporophyte, and tetasporophyte. To explain, we start from tetasporophyte, where meiosis occurs to produce four tetaspores, and these four tetaspores will grow into male or female algae called gametophytes. These gametophytes will undergo fertilization. It will occur between spermatia, which is produced by male reproductive organ, and carpangonium, which is the female reproductive organ, generating a zygote. The zygote will develop into cystocarp and then carspores before escaping to a hole at the top. Now, tetraspoprophytes will grow, and the cycle continues. Wait, hold up. I know that it sounds hard. However, realizing that the mouth-watering nori that we used to eat as a sushi is actually a red algae will make it easier. Trust me, it's easy to classify red algae as 98% of them are Floridiophyceae and only a single percent of them exist as a Banghiophyceae. Fun fact, do you know that agar that you always buy at the school canteen is actually extracted from red algae? Let's see the uses of each of the algae. For green algae, it is used in medical, cosmetic, and food industry. And for brown algae, it is a nutritious food source and it aids in the production of alginates and stabilizers. And for the red algae, it is well known for being an agar, and also for the dietary fibers that it contains.
Moving on, now I'm going to talk about the roles of protista, which we have the eutrophication, the human health, food source, peptides, and also the CO2 fixation. So the first role of protista that I'm going to talk about is the CO2 fixation. In the plankton community, we have the phytoplankton, which is basically the plant-like producer. So they have chloroplast and undergo photosynthesis, and they use sunlight, carbon dioxide, and also water to produce oxygen and other nutrients for other organisms. So how did the CO2 fixation happen? Since they are plant-like producer, they also have chlorophyll that feeds carbon dioxide to glucose with the help of enzyme Rubisco. So the example of the phytoplankton is the cyanobacteria, dinoflagellate, and also the diatom. The carbon dioxide is either respired for metabolic energy or accumulates in the biomass. So actually, you know that the oxygen that we breathe, 50% of them are basically from the phytoplankton. So the next role is the food source. Basically, Protista is a primary producer. As you can see in the aquatic food web, it starts with the phytoplankton being the primary producer, followed by the zooplankton being the primary consumer. But in some cases, the zooplankton is being consumed directly. Also, the protista is an essential source of nutrition to other organisms. For example, we have the photosynthetic dinoflagellate, which is the zooxanthellae, that give nutrients to coral polyps in a symbiotic relationship. Why is it called symbiotic? Because the coral polyps helps to house them and also provide them compound for photosynthesis, while the zooxanthellae will provide them with nutrients. Without the symbiotic relationship, the coral polyps will lose its algae pigment in a coral bleaching process, and they will eventually die. But if we are talking about human source of food, we have the spirulina and chlorella, which are both algae and being consumed as dietary supplement by most of us, because they are both high in nutrients, which are vitamins, carbohydrates, and also minerals. We also have seaweeds, which is the porphyra and the laminaria, that are edible. So now I'm going to talk about eutrophication. What is eutrophication? Eutrophication is a natural process that is resulted from the accumulation of excessive nitrogen and phosphorus in lake or other bodies of water. The result from it is algal bloom. Why? Because excessive nitrogen and phosphorus can cause algae to grow a lot in a short period of time. The overgrown algae will eventually consume oxygen in the water and block the sunlight from other organisms. This will cause the dissolved oxygen in the water to decrease, and it will go, if it goes lower than hypoxia level, the organism in the water will suffocate and eventually die. Although it is a natural process, there are also some causes that leads to eutrophication. Some of them are untreated sewage, the detergent that contains phosphorus, and fertilizers, and plus industrial waste. Okay, now red tides. Red tides is a phenomenon caused by an algae bloom in which the non-flagellate algae become so numerous that they discolor the coastal water. They are called red tides because of the red color of the algae. They are also called HAB, which is the harmful algal bloom. They are harmful because some of these algae produce powerful toxins that can kill fish, animals, and even mammals in the water. So, they also can cause bioaccumulation. Bioaccumulation is when the toxins build up in a body of an organism. So, it means the chemical concentration in a body is higher than the concentration in the environment. Although the red tides can kill human, but humans can suffer disease from it when they consume shellfish that feed on dinoflagellate. Some of the diseases are ASP, DSP, and also PSP. Now we have come to the last role of protista, which is in human health. As you can see in the slide, we have the Chagas disease, disease, and also malaria. The Chagas disease is caused by a trypanosoma protozoa in which the vector is the kissing bug. The vector will bite a person and the parasite will enter the person's blood cell and they will spread it to other tissues and organs. Next is the jar disease. The jar disease is caused by a Giardia protozoa in which the parasite will enter the body of the person through contaminated food or water from the feces of infected people or animal. The parasite will attach to a lining of the host small intestine and they will eventually prevent the host from fully absorbing nutrients. So the last one is malaria. The malaria is caused by a Plasmodium protozoa in where the mosquito is the vector. The mosquito bite will cause the parasite to enter the host cell blood. And next is the malaria. The malaria is caused by a Plasmodium protozoa and where the vector is the mosquito. The mosquito will bite a person and the parasite will enter the host blood and infected the host red blood cells. So that's all from us. I hope all of you get to learn a lot about this topic from us. Thank you.